If you're choosing between temporary accommodation and serviced accommodation, a lot of people frame this in terms of a money question. Which one pays more, which one is easier, and which one scales faster? That's the wrong framing. The real difference between these two strategies is not the cash flow, it's control. And the moment you go full-time into rent-to-rent business, control is a lot more important than cash flow. So we're going to get straight into it, and by the end, you might just think twice about one of these business models. So temporary accommodation is attractive for a reason. The numbers look incredible, it's council backed, you're going to be working with councils, providers, the cash flow, the contracts, it all feels really safe. You're going to get longer stays, fewer changeovers, not so reliant on cleaners, all of these types of things, right? So for a lot of people, temporary accommodation, or what is referred to as TA, seems like the most sensible rent-to-rent option because you're not dealing with weekend guests, you're not managing nightly pricing, you're not relying on the tourist demand, so low season doesn't really exist, even though it doesn't exist. But the stability that you think you have with TA is not contractual stability. It's demand stability, and those two things are not the same. And let me just remind you, you're in contract with a landlord. That contract does not change. The risk is you can go from fully occupied, huge cash flow, to absolute zero income in a matter of days. Yet you're still legally obliged to pay the rent to the landlord. So that creates a background anxiety that you didn't have at the start of starting this business or looking into it. It all seems amazing. Everybody's preaching the Dubai and the Rolex lifestyle online and saying you can do the same. They started exactly where you did. They don't tell you about this part. The start they do tell you about is the cash flow is amazing. The business feels very real. But once you get going and you get a couple of properties, that what if stays constantly in the back of your head. The what if the council changes their budget? What if the contract ends? What if the policy shifts? You cannot relax into your own business when it is absolutely controlled as an on-off switch by somebody else. The other risk with TA is you are exposed to policy changes. Councils are under constant pressure to reduce TA spend. They're incentivized to move people into longer term solutions. Their procurement strategy may change. So that is the risk. So you could be doing absolutely everything right, and then everything can change by the decision of somebody else. Temporary accommodation is also hyper local. So everybody hit up Luton Town Council because of a certain YouTube video. Now Luton Town Council no longer do it. Once an area is known as a TA hotspot, everybody floods to it and landlords switch off to it. Oh, you're the 5th person I've spoken to about this today. You can't even get through to the Luton Town Council anymore. Or if you do, they shut you down immediately because you're the 50th phone call that day. Landlords and councils are being approached by everyone. So suddenly you're not one of a few operators, you're one of 20, you're one of 30. So deals are harder to find because it's high competition. Your only target market is the council, not an individual landlord. So the competition is massive. And the only way you're going to get a deal is if you allow your margins to be squeezed, and that will in turn create a high risk business. 1 or 2 properties is absolutely fine to do that. It's when you're trying to scale, then all of the what ifs creep into your head. You might be profiting £7,000, £8,000, £9,000 cash flow every single month, but that what ifs will keep you awake at night. You can't spend that money because that what if and your obligation to pay the landlord for X amount of years, and the council can turn you off just like that. Let's say you got 7 properties, all reliable upon one council that can just turn you off with 2 days notice. Now you have 7 properties to pay rent on time every month, plus bills, plus council tax, and you have no income. You have no exit strategy if TA didn't work any longer. TA is a lot more expensive to set up than you're initially told online. So councils have strict standards. You front the cost before you see any return. They don't give you money to go and do it. You have to front the costs before you see any return. In fairness, so do you with serviced accommodation. But with this, there is a big cash flow lag. You're in a month in arrears with the council. So on paper, the return on investment looks very nice. But the reality of it is you've got that 1 month in arrears. You've got that exposure that your business can be turned off with 2 days notice. And the fact you're 100% dependent on one client with that on-off switch. But don't get me wrong, this is absolutely fine if you're just going to run it as like a side project. 1 or 2 properties, absolutely fine. It's just exceptionally stressful when you want this to become your sole income and you want to go all in on the business. Then the what ifs and the dependency and the control, you start to realize that actually you don't control your own business. A council does with the on-off switch. So It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Service accommodation is harder operationally. You have guests to manage, you have pricing to manage, you have teams to manage, and you have more systems. But structurally, you control it and it's more resilient. Your demand is spread across thousands of people, thousands of contractors and thousands of tourists, not just one council contract. You can change your pricing strategy, you can change your target market, so you can adapt to seasonality. This is what I was saying earlier. Low season does not exist. It exists for the average host, but you will not be the average host. So with service accommodation, you control the demand lever. With temporary accommodation, somebody else controls your income lever. Big difference. So this is the decision that I want you to think about before choosing a strategy. Do you want higher income? Do you want shorter, higher income with structural fragility, or a slightly more operational, complex business to run, but with long-term control? TA is not wrong, it's just exposed. SA is not easy, it's just resilient. So if you're new, this is what a lot of people will not tell you, the exposure. It's not what works in a good market, it's what works in a market when the market eventually changes, because nothing is forever, nothing is consistent. You have to have exit strategies. You have to be able to pivot. That is a risk with TA. You cannot pivot. And if you're already in TA and you felt that background anxiety, you're not on your own. I speak to many people in TA that have that exact anxiety, but they become a slave to their own business because of the cash flow. But that's the risk you take if you want that cash flow, but you are at high risk. That's why you have the anxiety. Choose wisely, because the business model that you do choose should let you sleep at night, not just make money on paper.